Welcome to And That's the Game podcast. Presented by ProBatter Sports. And That's the Game is hosted by Wayne Mazzoni. Today's special guest is J.P. Pyne.
Hello and welcome to this episode of And That's the Game podcast presented by ProBatter Sports. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach, current college baseball recruiting advisor. For anyone that wants to know more information about what I do, you can visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we had J.P. Pyne, who is the head baseball coach at Amherst College. JP is truly one of the funniest people. He makes a lot of cracks. I mean, he really could be a comedian if he wasn't a baseball coach. He's probably a baseball coach comedian. So this is a fun podcast to listen to. But we talked about, his, again, like with everyone, his upbringing. He actually then went to St. Joe's College in Maine. He's from Massachusetts. After college, he had a great experience coaching at a variety of schools and really neat summer baseball experiences, even some professional baseball experiences, all while he was being a college coach. And then in 2018 was hired to take over the Amherst program. Somewhat intimidating since Bill Thurston, who was the previous coach, was there for an extremely long time and is a legend in the world of baseball. But we covered a lot of stuff really about the coaching path and, certainly about getting to be able to be recruited and playing in the NESCAC. So hope you enjoyed the episode. I'd like to remind you that this podcast is made possible through the great support of ProBatter Sports, maker of the most advanced pitching machine for baseball, softball, and cricket. Like a pilot training in a flight simulator, hitters can practice like they play, getting the equivalent of live at-bats against a batting practice pitcher who never gets tired and can throw any pitch with pinpoint accuracy. Check out their line of amazingly affordable systems at ProBatter.com and take your swing to the next level. In addition, don't miss the new book, Practice Like You Play, authored by Adam Battersby, the president of ProBatter Sports, with a chapter written by yours truly. It's available today on Amazon.com. Without further delay, here's my talk with J.P. Pyne. So what I was saying, very excited to have you on for a variety of reasons. Number one, you're just a cool, fun dude. I mean, I love any of our interactions. You got a lot of personality. You have an awesome coaching background. But the third reason is, you're one of the few guys that kept going, oh, when is my podcast appearance? And when do you have it? Yeah. Right.
So I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I've got you up there with like Smartless as my, like, when I do my walk, the podcast. I'm not a huge podcast guy, but I'm trying to become more of one. You're definitely one of them for sure.
It's funny. I think just the whole thing takes off because you can get into minutia on things that people care about. Like 98% of the podcast we'd find boring, but like that 2% that catches you, it's nice to actually like get in the nitty gritty and not just like get over surface on things. So, I'm excited to have you on just to talk about baseball and your background and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
let's let it rip.
So obviously you're a New England guy from Massachusetts. It seems like we've had, a lot of them. And of course, everyone is on this as a baseball guy. Growing up, were you a multi-sport guy? Were you playing everything, or were you locked into baseball as a kid?
Well, when I was really young, I mean, I feel like I was one of those kids that was like, whatever the season was, that's what I was playing. So I obviously loved football growing up. I mean, when I was a kid, the Pats stunk, in the pre-Brady era, but like, street hockey in the winter, I never played organized hockey. I always loved hockey. I'm a big Bruins fan and all that, but like, street hockey and then baseball, wiffle ball, baseball, and all summer long. And then, as you grow up, in high school, I played football and baseball. And I was just kind of an okay football player, but I was, great big guy. And my family was sort of synonymous with football in Milford. I say my family, like distant relatives, but they were like a 3-generation NFL family. And I come in with the same name, and it was like, and I was like physically larger than them. And it was like, this guy's going to be, and I was like, just okay. And,
right.
But I always loved baseball more. And at some point my focus sort of shifted completely to baseball. I played 4 years of high school football at Milford High.
So a couple of things in there. I laugh and just wrote some notes. Number one, I have that same experience, played street hockey, never played any formal hockey, which in a way is probably like the people that commit to hockey, boy, you're all in when you're playing hockey as a youth. And then unfortunately, as a Jets fan, I am pained to hear that while you were with the Patriots when they struggled, then you had all the success. And for me, it's just failure the whole time. So,
well, at least you're consistent, right? But like for me, I talk about that all the time with my friends. For me, it was like from age 20 to 40, I had this greatness. My dad was like, 55 to 75, and he's like, that's, go out on top kind of thing. And so I definitely feel fortunate, and that's why I make it a point to labor through every second of the Patriots now, and the, sort of paying our dues again. So
yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to get sidetracked, but it looks like you got the right man for the job now, and I think you're probably on the way back up again.
I hope so.
In terms of, obviously you said you played those two. At some point when you're in high school, did you go, I'd love to get recruited. I absolutely want to play in college. And how did that come about? I know that you went to St. Joe's. How did the process from high school to there, how did that happen?
Well, I think that even in a different era when there was no social media and there was no, you didn't look on ESPN and see high school players with 3 hats on the table, committing live, but there it was a similar sort of peer pressure, right? When I remember the first time it was in the fall, his high school teammate got a letter from Michigan State. And I'm like, holy smokes, Michigan State. Like, this is the Big Ten. This is, we watch them on TV. And then I remember another program, like we walked into practice and every junior had a letter from a local Division III school. And it was like recruiting in bulk and all of that stuff. So football was sort of the first experience that I had where it was like, well, I want to play well because my buddy just got this letter. Like, I want to get a letter.
Right.
I want to walk around and be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't talk. I got to talk to, Nick Saban, like whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so that was really the first time that it became like a real thing. And yeah, Will Sanborn, who's at St. Joe's in Maine now, was the coach then, and he was really the first and most consistent baseball coach. I was a late bloomer. I feel like you've talked to a few guys that have that sort of label on them, and I think we all speaking for the late bloomers, we sort of wear it as a badge of honor. But I can tell you this: like at a certain point, I made the decision based on academics and what I thought was the right thing for me. And I made the decision that I was going to commit to Northeastern University to play football. And it was non-scholarship. It was a walk-on position. And I got injured, but I continued to long snap. And Northeastern, again, at the time, it was sort of more the first thing you said when you said Northeastern was a 5-year school. So it was like, you're going to come in, you're going to red shirt, make sure you're healthy. And I just remember at a certain point thinking, and this said, no, Northeastern's a great school. My father was there, and it's and certainly baseball, what Glav has turned that program into is amazing. But at a certain point, I just said, all right, there was a back injury. So I had a back injury. And now I'm signing up for 5 years of long snapping. That does not sound awesome to me. And so we still tell this story. And I know in your recruiting advising, I've heard you literally address this issue with your group, that I didn't communicate that decision the way that I should have. Like, again, it was a little bit of a different time, but I still regret it. I got a phone call I think it was like a Wednesday night. Will Sanborn, hey, just want to check in how you're doing. You know, the standard, you know, back in the day, you had your weekly calls, your monthly calls, your whatever. And I don't think I was like a huge priority guy for him by any stretch, because they've had some great teams there. So I told him, I said, Coach, I really feel bad. I should have called you, but I made the decision. I'm going to go to Northeastern University and I'm going to play football. And he's like, well, I wish you the best of luck. And I'll certainly be rooting for you. But if things happen, and if anything is to change, you have a place here. And probably like a standard tagline. And I said, okay, thanks, Coach. Hung up the phone, sat there, went downstairs, and I said, Mom and Dad, we need to talk. I called him back an hour later, and I said, Coach, I'm coming to St. Joe's.
Wow.
And so we still talk about that story, and I think that the takeaway was, like, you got to figure out what you love, not doing something out of obligation or what you feel like is out of obligation. And I also talk about you got to go where you're wanted. And so that was how I took his approach to recruiting. And I think that that's certainly influenced the way I do the job. And I can tell you to a man that when a kid, a potential student athlete, reaches out to me and says, hey, Coach, thanks for everything, but I'm going to fill in the blank, I say the exact Will Sanborn line to that kid that I got, which is like, hey, I hope that works out great for you. And we have a little bit of some different constraints at Amherst with some of the things, timelines and spacing and all that. But, hey, you have a place here. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, please let me know. And so it hasn't really boomeranged like that for me yet, but if it does once, I feel like it's worth it.
Well, there's a lot there. There's a lot of stuff there. First of all, I think about how that decision changed your life. Like, if you would have went to Northeastern, maybe you're a football coach now, because I think you're built to coach, right? Number two, if Sanborn came on the phone and said, JP, that's a stupid choice, dude. You're wasting your future. You'd be at Northeastern, right? So the way he handled it was incredible. The long snapping, here's what's interesting, though. In the modern world, dude, if you can long snap, and Northeastern said, not only we're going to pay for everything, and you know what? We're going to give you 30 grand on top of NIL money. It might have been a whole different story for you, right? At that point,
be a long snapper in a fur coat.
Exactly. But I also do, you're right. I tell any kid, listen, if you're committing somewhere else, anyone that you had a relationship with, you got to tell them, because this is, and ultimately because it's the right thing to do. And we're trying to raise good adults for the future. But, all of a sudden you leave Amherst and you go take the job at Georgetown, and some kid wants to transfer into Georgetown and whatever. And, I remember that kid. I liked him as a player, but not only that, he called me and told me he's going to another place. That's, that's just good way to do business,
Yeah. And I also think for me, I think about it as a parent now, right? I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. I was fortunate enough to meet your son recently. And like, I want somebody to think about my son and daughter, what I thought about your son after I met him, which is like, hey, this kid was raised right. This is a respectful kid, good kid. That's what I want. And part of that is just the way you interact with adults and the way you carry yourself as one. And so, and I was very influenced by Will Sanborn when I was there. I just thought, and I don't know how well you know him. I feel like he's kind of,
I feel
like he's kind of an enigma. And he's a guy who's been there for, I think it's 33 years. And I mean, I'd be guessing right now, but I think it's like 800 wins, like this, like it's something like that. If but just sort of like a great, I would love for my son to go play for him and have the impact on him that I got. And so, and I have a great dad, and I talk to my dad almost daily, and my dad will be the first to say, Will Sanborn made me a better person, made me a better man. And so those are the kind of role models that that led us to where we are, what we do, and probably more importantly, the way we do it.
And, it's funny, and this, I don't want to digress on this, but, I'm out of coaching now. If I could do it over again, I would have done one of two things. I either would have been at a prep school coaching football, baseball, and bring my dog and like kind of that lifestyle, because I also love football. Or, I played at Gettysburg. I would have loved to coach at that level. And the reason I say that where you're at now is it's obviously you want to win. You're recruiting and you're doing, but it's like you actually can have this 4-year relationship with a kid that you're helping build them, where I feel, and not that you can't at these other levels, but boy, all the movement now has made it very different environment for these coaches. And I don't envy what these guys are going through to deal with that almost year, like at Mohegan Sun. This is a little bit of a digression to basketball, but Steve Trimper, we're doing a talk on recruiting, and he said this: after the great basketball season, men's basketball season at Stetson, all 16 players left. Right. After the season, there's not a soul on the team. Like, that's just a different world than you're running in up at Amherst or anyone in the NESCAC. And I think your situation's for the better. I would assume you would agree.
100%. And I get asked a lot of questions about the transfer portal. And I tell them honestly, like, if you gave me a computer and an hour, I could not get onto the transfer portal. I don't know how to do it. I've had people help. Like I have a great coaching staff, Kevin Murphy and Chad Shade. They hop in and we don't have grad school, so we don't have the grad transfer option. But I like to say that we are insulated from it more than most. Not completely. I do know that there was a little bit of transfer portal movement from NESCAC players. We sort of track that. It's doing our due diligence, but absolutely, like when at Amherst, the backbone of all of our recruiting is the academic opportunity that we're offering, right? And so because of the strength of that, it allows us to get a better student athlete, a better baseball player than I could at some of the other Division III institutions that I've worked at. If I hear certain schools that are Division I, I don't just cross them off. Like, they're not ever going to choose us over so and so. We can win some of those fights. What you can't do is lose your ground getting into one of those long battles and then not getting the kid and then losing out on 3 others. And so over my 5.5 years here, I think I've learned how to navigate some of those things a little bit better, but it's always, the landscape changes. The minute that you think you figured it out, the landscape changes. Now I keep hearing how the new rules of Division I with the 34-man roster are going to impact us. I've yet to see it. We're not super transfer friendly, but we can do it. So the notion that a bunch of these really good, Division I guys are just going to trickle down, they may, right? They may. There's always that trickle down, but I don't see it necessarily sort of penetrating into the high academic as much, but we'll see. I mean, it's just kind of like you said, our focus is still recruiting 4-year players and developing them and winning with them. And that's what I signed up to do. So I'm happy that I get to still do it. And, it was like, I worked for Trimp too for 2 years. So it was interesting to hear a lot of the points that you guys were making. That was an excellent panel. But yeah, it is a different world. And I don't know that if it's for the better, but that's not for me to focus on right now. Instead, it's my group of 34, and let's get ready to play and compete and try and win a NESCAC championship.
So we'll definitely cover the Amherst stuff. And this thing I was going to bring up sort of at the end, but since it seems like the time to ask it, this really won't affect you at all. But did you see on, I guess, social media, this Division II ruling that they made now, where if you play under 30% of your team's games in Division II, that year does not count for your eligibility? First of all, did you see it?
I hadn't seen it.
So like, and I don't know where it came from or what it's about. And again, it's not going to affect you, but it's like, here's another thing now that came out. Why? Who knows? But like that literally was announced yesterday. At first, someone posted 30 games you could play, but then that was incorrect. Yeah, it's 30%. But it's like, it's another reason to have these kids, and again, doing what I'm doing in the recruiting advising world, like a lot of kids say to me, well, you know what, maybe I'll just go there for a year and then I'll transfer out. And I'm like, dude, that's not the way to go into it. And if you get there and you're doing well and you love your coaches and the classes and your teachers and your buddies, like you're not going to want to leave. There are instances, I'm sure, which I don't want to sidetrack us on, when a couple of years back when COVID had affected things and guys are graduating Amherst with eligibility left. Yeah, you'll do what you can to have them continue to play. But I mean, for the most part, that piece is over. But let's get back to you you're at St. Joe's. I mean, I know you were a really good player. Were you at that point going, hey, I got a chance to play after college? Or were you like, I'm either going to get a job or I'm going to start coaching? Where were you at the end of your, college playing career?
So like to this day, I sit by my phone on draft day. And I just had Ray Fagnan's son for 5 years at Amherst. And I was like, Ray, like, I'm not getting any younger here. Like, let's take off.
That's awesome, dude.
No, I knew I was not good enough to go play at the next level. The same back injury that made me reconsider my future. It sort of happened. I ended up having surgery the summer after my junior year. So I was really limited, a back surgery. I was really limited in the fall of my senior year. And I had a nice career. I'm proud of one of the things I am proud of is I graduated in 2001, and 24 years later now, I'm still in the record books on a couple of things. Like the one that I'm really proud of is I pitched in more games than anyone to ever wear that uniform. Right? I pitched in, I think it was 76 games, and so that was something. And I have like saves and single seasons of saves appearances. And I loved my career. I love my teammates, right? And we won a lot. My senior year, I think we were 38-6. And it was just a great experience. And the back injury was again pretty formidable, or for me, or because that fall I couldn't play, and so I was like, I want to impact the team, and I can't play. And I was a captain, so I could lead and tell guys what whatever form of leadership that I felt like I could contribute. But what I really did, and I had started this really prior to the senior year, but I said that I want to give every tour, I want to host every overnight, and I want to be on every call panel. We used to do these phone bank, recruiting things, and that's when I kind of said, like, I want to coach. Like, this is if this is really the lifeblood of coaching, is being able to engage with and attract and commit recruits and recruiting. Obviously I wasn't like going out on the road and evaluating talent.
Right.
But getting involved in that way, that was really impactful. And so I knew I wanted to coach. And also the summer, so right after I graduated, like I mentioned before, I'm from Milford, Massachusetts, which is one of the old, like, huge baseball towns in Massachusetts. So it's sort of like Milford, Braintree, so I went back and coached because I couldn't play summer ball and because of the injury, and then I graduated. So I had coached twice, and I actually coached. I worked for my old Legion coach, a guy named Rich Pure Gustavo, who's I don't know if you know Richie, but like another like maybe the most overqualified American Legion coach in the country at the time. He was the youngest manager in the history of the Cape Cod League. He had just been to Omaha with Georgia Southern in 1990. He played at Eckerd College. And again, I learned a lot from him. Very different personality. Like, he's a fiery catcher, like wanted to fight everybody, and just a tough old school baseball catcher. And so I went back and coached with him, and we ended up going to Yakima, Washington for the American Legion World Series. And again, my first coaching experience, and we're, flying to a Legion game.
Right.
And so that kind of got the ball rolling with me. And there's a name I guarantee that one of like the all-time great New England scouts, a fellow by the name of John Koziak.
Yes.
So my mom was Coze's like homeroom teacher at Milford High. And so one thing leads to another. I end up going to the NEIBA All-Star game back when it was at Fenway where it should be.
Right.
And I went with Coze. We sat down next to Kenny Herring, who was at St. Anselm, and he's like, Coze, I'm dying here. I need a pitching coach. You got anybody? And he's like, yeah, I'm sitting next to him.
Wow.
And it was literally like that. It was like a handshake deal that night. And I went home, literally was packing up and heading to Manchester less than a week later.
So your career of coaching is so varied that I'm going to ask you, what do you think is better? You think it's better to go through where you went chronologically, or talk more about, like, I was going to first ask you, I know you have a pretty extensive summer background and even a little bit of a pro coaching background. Like, how do you want to divide it up? Do you want to talk about the non-college and then we'll get into the college?
So yeah, I think that like the non-college stuff, I think like the pro stuff is always like more interesting, right? Because it's like the Toronto Blue Jays, and like that's like a cool, the independent stuff was cool. But I never left college, right? So
Right.
It's like even with the summer ball, I have been continuously involved with college baseball since I graduated, since the fall of 01.
So all those other things were always sort of summer season or outside of your college.
Sure. Yeah. Now I did try, like I took a run at trying to make the Blue Jays thing more permanent, and it ended up not working out. And I think that like that landscape has changed so drastically, right? In terms of like if you were a college coach in 2000, again, I said 2002 through 2012, because I was doing the Blue Jay stuff in like, I want to say it was like 9, 10, and 11 or something like that. If you had aspirations of working in professional baseball, you better have played, even if it was a cup of coffee. Like it wasn't an option. And now it's very commonplace, right? To see people again, and part of that might be like the tech
Totally.
a bit for sure. But like there are other guys like, I think our mutual friend, like Greg DeCenzo, managing in the Eastern League. I think that's awesome. And I got to talk to him at Mohegan a little bit too. And it's like, so I got to spend 2 years in the Eastern League, or 1.5. And that was awesome. Like that was like, so I got to I was sitting in the manager, Louis Rivera was the manager, old Red Sox second baseman. And he was just the third base coach for the Blue Jays for 5 or 6 years. I got to sit in his office. We were in Akron, and Zach Stewart, right-handed pitcher, got called up to the big leagues for the first time. And I'm sitting on the couch in the manager's office, like witnessing this thing. And I'm like, the hairs in the back of my neck are standing up. And it's like, this is just this, like, how am I here? Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
And, but just, a little cliche, but I just said like that experience with the Blue Jays was sort of a master's degree in baseball, like just baseball. Like you're not worried about recruiting. You're not worried about what the kids' grades were. You're not worried about anything other than winning tonight to a point, but like development and getting these guys, moving them on. And that was tremendously informative for me. And so when I took that experience with the Blue Jays, and when I went and managed in the Futures League in Nashua and then in Worcester, all that I did was I tried to take that experience that I got and try to frame an experience, because every kid that you ever coached, Wayne, and every kid that I ever coached, somewhere inside dreams of playing pro baseball.
Of course.
And very few of them know exactly what that entails. I had no idea what that entails until you're on a midnight bus from Akron to Erie. You don't know what that's like. And so I tried to like create an environment in our clubhouse. I wasn't Coach Pyne. I was JP. Because it's been a long time for me, but if you went up to Louis Rivera and said, "Hey, Coach, you owed him $10,"
right,
and I'm going to do that with college kids in the summer, but it was establishing that type of culture, sure, but like that experience, it's like they all want that. Like it's very transactional at that level. You play well, you stick around, or you move up. You don't play well, you go home. We're not in it to make everybody happy. And it literally the definition of professional, right? You're doing this for a living. And the other thing that really helped me inform kids, I think that I brought to managing, and like Nashville was amazing, and Worcester, very similar cities, blue collar cities, and I used to talk to those teams about like, hey, look up in the stands, because we drew well. I was very fortunate both of those places, because you go to some of these summer ball, and I'm not talking about the Cape, but like,
right,
you go to some of these places and there's 13 people there, and so it made me appreciate it when I'm at Holy Cross, which obviously you're super familiar with the ballpark. But on Friday night they're doing fireworks and there's 4,500 people, 5,000 people. That's a cool environment to play in. I don't care who you are. And so I would talk to our guys and say all the time, like, when it's summer, it's hot, they're long days, it's a lot of baseball, you're probably not at home, some of these kids. And I'm like, you have to remember that guy sitting in the 13th row, he paid his hard-earned money to come and watch you play baseball. So next time you feel like you don't want to bust it down the line, go pay that guy's ticket. Go buy his ticket. You know what I mean? Because that's what you want. This is the trade-off. And so I've actually had, like, I don't want to hurt myself trying to pat myself on the back, but I've had a couple of those guys come like reach back out after their first year in, pro ball, and they start getting into like, Florida State League. I know that's changed a lot. I don't even know what the landscape is anymore with all those teams that got eliminated. But I've had guys reach out and be like, that experience was really important. I didn't know it at the time, but that was really important, and that makes you feel good. And I think that those leagues are really important. And again, to go back to the recruiting side of it, it's become a recruiting ground. I don't think that was ever the intention.
But
those leagues are probably more important now than they've ever been. And so, but I had a great experience. It was always a side job.
Right.
And I was always felt really blessed to have a great coaching staff to be able to run off with the circus for the summer. And then obviously having a great wife. And then when we had our family, I was very lucky. My kids loved to be at the ballpark. And so it really worked out. And then when the opportunity at Amherst came up, it was like, all right, now finally, this is the one that we put all our eggs into this basket, and now the kids have the deal. Your kids have so much stuff that I couldn't imagine trying to do anything more than we do at all right now. So,
yeah. Well, there's a couple of things you said there, that was awesome to hear. That I was always torn. First of all, I don't think even ever in my coaching career was I qualified to to move on to the pro level. But I would remember being on like a 10-day spring break trip. You don't have any house to clean. You don't have any food to shop for. You don't have any wife and kids. You don't have to worry about school anymore with the kids. It was like it was like you tried to make it seem difficult to the wife. Like, oh man, but like it was the simplest existence humanly possible. And it definitely was alluring to go, man, if I was in pro ball, this is what you do all the time. Like everything's taken care of. You just coach baseball. Now, of course, there's trade-offs because you're not doing your own things. You're not socializing. But boy, it's a nice, simple existence that is really cool. So it's cool that you had that experience for sure.
It was. And I got such I mean, literally behind the scenes look at living it and what it was, so I was with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats in the Eastern League, so AA. And we had some great players and I would get way sidetracked, so I tried to list them all off, but I was there for, and our pitching coach, my first year there, was a great Connecticut baseball player named Tom Signor. Tom pitched at Quinnipiac and then played a little bit of pro ball. I know he was on a Quinnipiac team and went to the Division II World Series, so that may date him a little bit. But
right.
And then the next year we had another great Connecticut pitching coach, Pete Walker.
Oh,
and so I got to learn quite a bit from Pete in a little bit of a shorter time. And then the organization called me and was like, because I was sort of the extra guy, and I was very happy. It was, throw BP, hit fungos,
right.
No job was too small. I rubbed up many a dozen baseballs before a road trip and enjoyed every second of it. And then in the middle of my second year there, they asked me to go to the Gulf Coast League. They ended up letting their pitching coach go, or he had an illness situation. I ended up going down to Dunedin and did 10 weeks in the Gulf Coast League, which was, in terms of game experience, like quite the opposite, right? You go from like nice ballparks and fans and the Eastern League and AA baseball is literally everyone's a phone call away from the dream coming true. In the Gulf Coast League was you played at noon, it's 113 degrees.
Yeah.
And these guys are just getting into this. And so, again, got to coach some cool names that are still doing, some of them are still doing things. And it was just a great experience, but yeah, it was pretty impactful on, just in terms of the way that you go about your business when it's every single day. And you mentioned spring trips, and those are the best examples, right? Because it's like the only thing you're really worried about is baseball, maybe a little curfew, but but baseball. And so it was the way that you treat each other and the way that you interact is so critical. And I think that informed a lot of what I carry with me today doing the job.
All right, so let's do this. We'll use this time, take a break, because when we come back from this, we're going to get into kind of that career path through college that got you to Amherst. And then I want to talk obviously about Amherst and then NESCAC as well. So let's take a break with JP Pyne. We'll be right back after this.
Introducing ProBatter, the future of baseball training. With the PX3, you can practice like you play. There is a better way to train your athletes. With an easy-to-use touchscreen controller, you can program any pitch, any speed, at any location. The ProBatter simulator is designed to replicate real game, real-world pitching. Better practice, better play. Hit any spot inside or outside the strike zone. The PX3 features reliable mechanics and an optional automatic ball feeder system. Get the most from practice. In addition to baseball, the PX3 is perfect for softball. With the PX3, no more relying on practice pitchers or basic pitching machines. Better practice, better play. ProBatter. Train like it's game day. Step up to the plate with confidence.
Hello, this is Wayne Mazzoni, host of And That's the Game podcast. I hope you're enjoying listening and watching the podcast as much as I am making it. It's really been enjoyable to connect with all these great people, great baseball people. The purpose of this message is to let you know about College Baseball Advisors, a company that I founded a couple years back after 30 years as a college baseball coach. I basically guide players and families through the recruiting process. If you're interested in learning more, please go to collegebaseballadvisor.com and learn more, or book a call where we basically will meet and talk about your recruiting process. I'll lay out a 3-step plan for you to move forward. If after that call you think I'm someone that could help you in this process, we can discuss that. If not, you just want to take that information and use it to go forward, that's great as well. So hope to see you down the road. Thank you. All right, we're back with JP Pyne. This awesome stuff so far, man. You're just the best. Like, I would love to hang out with you, and we have, but not as much as we want, where there's some adult beverages and maybe a cigar or two, but we don't want to get too close. Yeah, exactly. So you had said before you're at the NEBA All-Star game, and it starts with Ken Herring at St. A's. So if you can kind of go through your journey of where from then to obviously what got you to Amherst. Talk about, not only the places you've been and just maybe things you took away from each stop.
Yeah. So St. A's was, my first opportunity, and St. A's is a great school. It's a beautiful campus. And I actually got an opportunity there to live on campus, and I had to work in the dorms. And it was funny because it was literally a year out. Like, I graduated in 2001, and 3 months later, I'm like the dorm guy at St. A's. And I'm like, I went from one side of the, it's like, going from a cop to a criminal kind of, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But so that sort of made me, I like to joke around. That first job at St. A's, I made $1.5 thousand a year and never complained about it.
I love it.
And so that, Kenny gave me complete autonomy with the pitchers. I helped with the recruiting, and again, I had some experience with the on-campus piece, and the interaction piece, and making people feel comfortable, and selling what you have to offer institutionally. So I think I did a good job with that. Like, the going out and evaluating talent, like, that took me a little longer than I probably would like to. And not only just evaluating talent, anyone can look and say that's a good baseball player, but like from the lens of admissibility, right? And the admission side, and doing all those things. And Kenny was really good at it then. He sort of took that St. A's team that had very limited success historically, and we were very competitive in that window, made an NCAA tournament. And I think that was sort of, and I think the NE10 is a great league. It's there's a lot more than 10 now.
Yeah.
But like, I felt like that was sort of the golden age of the NE10. Like, Kinger was really starting to get there with Franklin Pierce. Timmy Shea at Southern College, they had it rolling. Bentley was always good.
Yeah.
John Chauvin at Bryant, the Division II version of Bryant. Like, that was a great league, and guys were getting drafted, and guys going on, and it was a wood bat league then, and so it was just
right.
It was really a good experience to sort of be on the upswing with a program, and we almost, I think we did too well too fast, because Kenny got the opportunity at UMass Lowell, and that was unquestionably the right thing for him and his family geographically, and the whole holistically for him to take that job. And so now I'm sitting in the office, and I had an option. I can go to UMass Lowell and get a raise and be the pitching coach, or I can stay and be the head coach. And I elected to stay. And that same year, Nick Collini was named the head coach at AIC, and we were the two youngest head coaches in the country. I was 24 years old, and so I was like, I'm going to be here forever. Like, this is great. Like, because again, at that time, if you didn't play professional baseball or have a master's degree or head coaching experience, you weren't going to get a head job.
Right.
Period. And so if you wanted to make a living or almost make a living, you had to be a head coach in New England. I mean, I did Division I. I mean, there, and so,
Man.
And so I very blindly like leapt into this job, and it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I just, and I felt competent enough when I had my baseball pants on,
Right.
I could roll in practice. I think I had the respect of our players. We had some really good players. We were always going to be thinner than some of the other schools in the NC10 just because of some of our, our institutional things. But I had great players, great kids, great family support. We had the Sullivan family who still supports St. A's. Like they were great. I played with their son, Milford Legion, but it was just like I wasn't sure what I was doing outside of practice, and I felt like it was being thrown in the frying pan. And looking back, it was really beneficial to me. But at the moment, you feel like you're about to go underwater, and it's just like I don't know. And at the same time, so after my second year, they also made the decision to eliminate the on-campus the on-campus dorm position was going to go full time, and so I had to choose, and it wasn't even a choice. I mean, I was going to stay with baseball, but it just couldn't be there with what the money was and what the job was, and so I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and so I went back to St. Joe's for a year. I called Coach Sanborn, again, my lifeline, and I said, "Hey, I'm about to take a year off here," and so he's like, "No, come on out." They're like, we're gonna get you a dorm job, and I'm like, "Well, I don't need that. Like, it doesn't have to be that."
Right.
And it ended up being just that, and that year was amazing. That was the year I met my wife. So I went back and we worked together. I met my wife, and working for Coach. Like, I still remember. I guarantee he doesn't, but I remember. It was a fall practice, and I'm out there in right field with the pitchers, and we're going through whatever drills and getting ready to probably shag fly, whatever it was. And I'm talking to the group, and I was like, "Wow, they're really locked in, paying attention. It's a good group." And I wrap up and I turn around, and Coach Sanborn's right there, and I'm like, "Oh, that's why they're paying attention." The skipper's right behind me,
Right?
And he said to me, he goes, "Hey, you're a really good instructor." And I still remember that. Like, that still got me. I would be shocked if he does. But that meant a lot to me. And so we had a great year, went to an NCAA tournament, got knocked out by Sean Gil Blair in the Eastern Connecticut wagon that year. And that summer, I got approached by a guy named Phil Rowe, who is a great basketball coach, and he's been an administrator at a bunch of places, and he was at Daniel Webster College. And if we hadn't have played them that year, I don't know that I ever would have even heard of Daniel Webster College. But St. Joe's was transitioning to the GNAT conference, which at the time Daniel Webster was a member, so he tried to play everybody. And I end up getting offered that job, and I accepted that job with my eyes wide open. I went there and I looked, and like we had played them, like I said, and they were not very good, and there were not very many of them. And but I felt like, I remember, matter of fact, Jason King, who I mentioned before, when I got the St. A's job, he said to me, he's like, you'll never enjoy a job more than the job you take over that you have to build it from scratch. And those words are very true. And looking back on my 6 years at Daniel Webster, like that, my first practice there, we had 11 players. One of them was a young woman from Australia who I learned a lot from her in the year that I got to coach her about toughness and commitment and blocking out the noise and the stuff that doesn't matter. And I had a bunch of guys that tried really, really hard, and that's what it was going to be. And so I think my first year we were like 4-32, and then 7-34, and I was just like, well, there goes my career record. Like we're stop worrying about that. And so now it's just like, let's make this better. And I hired a great young coach named Mike Rocco, and he came in and was really motivated, and we started to just get after it and get players. And then Mike got a head job and moved on. He's now at Assumption, but he moved on at the time to Leslie. And I hired another young go-getter, Kevin Casey, who's now the head coach at Johnson & Wales. And he's a Milford kid. So I coached him as an Allegiant, him and his brother Brian, who's a Coast Guard. I coached him as American Legion players. And obviously, I think if somebody's watching this podcast this far in, they probably know who John Casey is, the legendary Tufts coach. And so,
yes, exactly.
So I had guys that were motivated to bring players in, and we ended up going to 2 regionals, and we won, I think, 3 conference championships or 3, I think. And we built that. I'm very proud of that program that we built.
Sure.
I'm very sad that Daniel Webster is gone. But that writing was on the wall there. And so I knew at a certain point we were hitting the ceiling of what we could achieve there. And not that that's what it's all about. Like,
no, I get it.
Stay at the ceiling, right? And so when I had done the stuff with the Blue Jays when I was there, it was through a friend of mine named Brian Butterfield, who was in the big leagues for many, many years. And and so he lived very close to St. Joe's, and we would watch football together. And he's like, I talk to him daily, at least through a text message to this day. And he's a great friend, and how about a resource like that? Like,
right.
Literally if there was a Hall of Fame for the best coaches in Major League Baseball history, not that aren't managers, even though he should have been, he's there. And so he was the one who, we have in our industry, we have the Jack Butterfield Award. His dad was the head coach at Maine, and Butter played at Maine before he transferred, all this, whatever. And he made the connection with me to Steve Trimper, who at the time was the head coach of the University of Maine. And I called him and I said, "Hey, coach, like I have a job. I'm a head coach. I have a good little program that nobody's ever really heard of. I'm not super comfortable with the direction of the institution. I need to I usually use the phrase wash the stink off, but I probably wouldn't want that. Well, there's nobody left there. So, but like if there's, I want to sort of change my upward mobility. And I think that a year on your staff or 2 on your staff, if you'd have me, would be an opportunity." He said, "Let's meet, come up." Took the short little jaunt up to Orono.
Yeah.
And I went up there, and what an amazing place. Like, it's like, there's so few, I would imagine, in the country where you're the only Division I program in the state. That's a big state. People care about it. And there's also pretty amazing history if you dig into the history of UMaine baseball with Coach Butterfield as the patriarch, and then John Winkin and all the way up through Costi and Tremp, and Nick Durba is a stud right now. And they're my early favorite to win the America East this year.
Heard it here.
So I went up there and again, it was not, I kind of felt like it closed the circle, like Division I, Division II, Division III, summer ball, pro ball, got to do pretty, I can say that and honestly do all that. And I still remember, my first weekend was we went down to the University of Miami and we beat them on Saturday night. And I was like, we're the greatest team. And look at that. And we weren't, but it was a great experience there. Recruiting with scholarship money was a new experience. And then I got to, in my second year at Maine, as the pitching coach, we brought in John Schiffner. So I got to work with another, legend of New England baseball and Cape League, Hall of Famer and you name it. And learn from him. And we have, you want to talk about having some laughs on the road. I can't tell a lot of Schiff stories on here because there's families watching, but we had a lot of fun and still are close to this day and in close touch. But yeah, and when I was there, it was a grind. I mean, that geography is a grind. We talked about the pro ball experience, but if you're going to recruit and it's not in the state of Maine, you're on the road for 2.5, 3 hours before you even leave the state. And so,
right.
And we had our daughter there, and that sort of changed our priorities as it will happen. And
right.
At the end of my second year, the opportunity at Clark came up, and I was fortunate enough to go and get that job. And I felt like Clark was I don't know if I would say like a sleeping giant, but I would say there was a lot to like about that. The facility is fantastic. I love the city of Worcester. It's obviously, with the AAA team now, it's sort of been rejuvenated, across the board. But we had a great experience in Worcester, and it was, we won. We did pretty well, and I think that I'm really proud of my time there, and that worked sort of in conjunction with the Bravehearts too. It's right. My experience, that was, I just really enjoyed my time. And then, that summer, the opportunity comes, summer 2018, it comes up, Amherst, and I guess the rest is history, as they say. But the gravity of the Amherst job was not lost on me at the time, and it's still not to this day. And to take over the oldest program in the history of college baseball, and to work in the oldest athletic department in the history of the country, to be a part of one of the great rivalries in college sports. There's so much amazing stuff, and the number one, hands down number one attraction to this place is getting to coach the young men that I get to coach. I like to say every day when I go to practice, there's a chance that I'm coaching a future president of the United States. And not that I think that's the greatest job right now, but it's
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so that opportunity came up, and it was holy smokes. It was that same feeling that I talked about sitting in the manager's office in Akron. I sometimes do it now. I go how the hell did I get here? And, thank my lucky stars that I'm here and appreciate every moment of it.
Well, there's a lot to unpack. There was really, really good. There's a couple things I wrote down. One is that young part of a coaching career, whether you're an assistant or a head coach, there's no job training. It would be nice in these young jobs in coaching where it's all right, here's a curriculum. Here's the things you need to learn. Here's an online education. Most of even when I graduated college, friends are going into these business jobs and they're in training. And I'm like running the whole pictures. I'm like, hold on, you're giving me 20 people? The man's like, I don't know what I'm doing,
Right.
And then not to couple it with the head coach at St. A's, it's like you said, baseball pants are on. You know what's going on, but no one's teaching you how to be a head baseball coach. And even a guy I coached at Sacred Heart, JJ Edwards, who went to Wofford as the volunteer, moved all the way up the chain and is now the head coach there. Great guy, great baseball guy. Year one, he was like, man, this is a lot. This is over. I didn't realize how much stuff there is to do. Forget the baseball, piece of that. Second thing, when you took over Daniel Webster, reminded me of when I took over at Post in 1999, 2000. It was Takeo Post then. They had the players did a mutiny and quit the year before. They stopped the program midway through the season. I get the job. I'm like, oh, I'm a head coach D2. I get in, there's 11 people in the meeting. And I'm like, 2 of them didn't speak English, and then to turn it to like not a laughing stock. It's very satisfying to do that for sure.
I think we came down and played you because I remember getting, concussions were not in vogue, at the time, but the visitors dugout at Municipal Stadium was waiting to happen for me.
Yes.
But I didn't mean to interrupt you there either.
No, totally. And clearly too, talking to you, and this is why I enjoy this. I learned a lot because, your career makes obvious sense. You get this gig at St. A's, you get thrust into head coaching, position, but obviously it's not a great setup for a long-term thing. Then you go back to St. Joe's, and then the Daniel Webster thing comes along, and just to see how you went, and then you're at Maine, but then now you have a daughter, and it's like, or I forget what you said, daughter. It's like, yeah, and it's like, man, I'm on the road in this crazy D1 world, right? So it's like, hey, it makes sense to go to Clark and not have to be insane and working these jobs. To Amherst now, I mean, like I said, what a crazy storied place, what a great institution. I'm sure there are some challenges with that, but if you could, this is like, not that I want you to be the poster boy for NESCAC, and most of the people in the area know NESCAC. Almost everyone in the area knows NESCAC. Many of the kids I work with, they have this list. They want to be at an NESCAC school. I try to explain to them, I don't think you realize how good it is, how competitive it is, how good you have to be baseball wise and academically. It's not just this fallback program, but I think we know that. But yet, you could say Harvard to somebody in Arizona, but you say Amherst, it doesn't roll off the tongue, even though we all know it here. Can you just give an overview of like, what does the NESCAC mean to you? How would you describe the conference from an athletic/baseball standpoint?
I think that it's a pretty amazing conference when you, like you said, when you think about the competitiveness across all sports, and I think that it also highlights some of the uniqueness to the way that the NCAA works at the Division III level. I think this year was a good example where my numbers might be a little off, but like you told me I wouldn't be fact checked.
No fact checking. No fact checking.
I think 8 men's soccer teams in the NESCAC made the NCAA tournament this fall.
Right.
And Amherst won the national title. And so congratulations again to Coach Serpone. And again,
I mean, that's sick. What an experience to do that.
Oh, it was, my God. It was, and they had been to the mountaintop and lost a couple, like all that. But on the women's side, they got 2 teams in, and it's like, I think part of that is some of like the changing of the way teams are evaluated, and we're going to see that this year in baseball with a different sort of metric system. But just to be competitive, like, this is the first place I've ever been where we have 27 varsity sports.
Right.
And so, and all of us, we're well resourced. We have what we need. Our student athletes get what they need and then some, right? And so we have those resources. And one of the things that I talk about the most with just about every recruit that I sit down with is our alumni network. And
huge. Yeah.
And so when I think about alumni support, like my whole career, no matter where I was, and like Steve Trimper was literally the master of fundraising and turning a vision into a reality. But alumni support that I think about, yeah, the financial, the gifts, like those are critically important, but the support that my student athletes get from those people as mentors is so important in terms of like, it's just different than when I was there. And I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I would think maybe you can agree. And you went to a great school in Gettysburg, but the competitiveness of internships is wild.
Right.
And certainly first jobs and even now, career changes. And so the alumni group that we have, it just magnifies their experience so much in a positive way. And so from an athletic standpoint, yeah, I like to say that. And again, I'm a Division III guy, and I've coached at multiple Division III schools, and I believe in Division III, and I think it's a great level of play. Obviously, a very varied, with being the biggest division, but I like to say we don't recruit Division III players. We recruit Amherst College players, and there's a difference. And, that's noticeable in the players that we've had go on and play professionally and all that, but that's not why you come to Amherst, right? But, yeah, it's an amazing institution. And I think that the NESCAC as a whole, we have great leadership in the conference offices, and everybody is really allowed to the autonomy to build their program. And I think that I feel really lucky to be in a cohort with some pretty amazing coaches in the league. And there's no weekends off. Everyone could beat everybody.
Very true.
And there's been since I've been here, even there's been this arms race of facilities, right? And so Tufts built this place that's amazing, and then Bowdoin built one that's even better. Trinity started it with that ballpark is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so now, like, we're kind of in the midst of that. I know Bates is working on something up there, and Colby built a beautiful ballpark, and then the Death Star landed there. They have this beautiful athletic facility.
Yeah.
Can't say that, but so it's all that, and like we kind of stay the course. We say like the power of our brand is that we're Amherst, right? We are who we are, and all the history, all the tradition, all the people out there. The program, obviously, literally and figuratively, like sort of looming over our program in my office is Bill Thurston. We have his jersey number 5 hanging, 44 years, Hall of Fame. And he's still local, and but we have all these guys that are in professional baseball, and we have guys that are on the field in the big leagues. Dave Joust and Hugh Quattlebaum was a hitting coach with the Mets, and then Dan Duquette and Neil Huntington, Ben Charrington, like all these guys. Jared Banners, one of the next guys to make the move, and Pike Goldschmidt. Like, we've got all these guys, the Cubs, the A's, the whatever, and so our guys get this leg up, and it's just the history and tradition that live inside this program are really unparalleled, and I think that everybody else in the NESCAC probably says the same thing or has the same feeling, and they should. But I think that's what makes the conference amazing. And I had a lot of preconceived notions about the NESCAC and even about Amherst when I came here, and I've just been blown away by just how amazing the place it is. And to make for the third time I'll say it like that, I sort of pinch myself when I drive by the sign every morning, and but I've never once like felt out of place because of somebody being like what? How did you get here? Or something
Right,
like that.
right.
So I count myself as very lucky.
So one comment, and then the last question. The alumni networking really can't be overstated for a variety of things. Just look at your path, though, too. You're sitting with a guy at a game. He knows this guy. Boom, you got that job. This guy, the Casey. It's like, that's what makes the world go round. Look at when people get these NFL jobs. They hire people that they're comfortable with and they know. So I think that is a very real thing, that an alumni network at a school, especially an SCAC, especially in Amherst, is a massive sell. And it's real, and it's absolutely real. Last question then is, let's just talk recruiting, because people that will be watching this, it's a very, I mean, you must know, I certainly know how sought after people watching this themselves, their kids, players they coach, want to get themselves in the NESCAC. So let's just assume they have the talent. This is a NESCAC worthy player. What is the methods that you find out about kids? How do you go about, is it the old school, just straight up, you're out beating the bushes, you're networking, you're going to camps, you run your own camps? What are the things that you specifically have done to fill out your roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of all those things, right? I mean, you do anything for 24 years, and you're going to have a network, whether it's a good network or a bad, who knows? But I feel like I have a good network, and I feel very fortunate to have people like you reach out to me and say, hey, I'm working with this young man, or I can call you and say, hey, this guy's kind of local to you. You ever heard of that guy? And look, we because of the academics, I can't just go. But when I was at Maine, it was like you drive down to Diamond Nation, you park yourself there for 10 days, and you're just literally, your head's on a swivel looking for good baseball players.
Right.
I just can't do that. It's just not an efficient use of our time and our resources, right? So the academic vetting side has been really important. So we have a great relationship with Showball. So we're at those events. And some people have different feelings about those big showcases and all that, but they've been really beneficial to us. We do run our own institutional camps. Those are critical to us in terms of being able to showcase our facilities. And you mentioned the kid in Arizona that may not be as familiar with Amherst as the kid in, New York City or Boston or Worcester, but we do have some traction out there, maybe more than some people think. But I think that when you're hearing from the Ivy League, you're hearing from the Patriot League, and now you're hearing from the NESCAC, the natural thought is to be like, well, they're the Division III option. So who knows what the facilities are like, or what the, resources are in terms of whether it's the tech or the, gear, is probably
right,
the thing, but with these kids, but so to be able to have an on-campus, institutional camp, show them what we have, let them get their feet dirty on our field, let them, put themselves in those have been really, really important. I think coming out of COVID, we all had to learn quickly to trust video more than we were previously comfortable doing. So I still like that as an introductory thing. And then, the onus is on one of us or both of us to get in the same room, right?
Right.
We see people compete. We try to do that and be as flexible as possible to see kids compete before we make those decisions. But we do have limited, support. That's the reality. And you have to be academically viable, even with our support. It's not like we can go down below the standard of admissibility when you're talking about a place that, whatever the NESCAC schools range between, 6 and 12% acceptance rates. Even if you're admissible in your mind, my support is still going to matter, but you have to be in that window. And so those are all important things. And then as far as what separates good players from the kids that we offer our support to versus those that we let go by the boards, obviously the baseball, the talent, positional need, whatever that's the standard baseball side of it. But we're also really protective of our culture. My group, I love my group. We all spend more time with them than we do with our families in the spring. And so we try our best, and look, we've gotten fooled before. We all have as coaches. You do it long enough, it's going to happen, right? But we're really protective of it, and we try to vet potential student athletes as much as we possibly can, so that our culture doesn't take a hit. And it also, I think, the stronger, I always, to go full back to the Patriots, I feel like if you build that culture as strong as possible, the margins do get a little bit wider to take a gamble on somebody, because you trust your leadership. And
Right.
and if there is a level of accountability that exists, and it's not singularly enforced by the head coach or even the staff, but by the players themselves, then you got something there. And I feel like that's what we have. We've had it for a couple of years, but this year feels really special. It's a great group. So our fingers are crossed that it's going to be a really good year. And but as far as recruiting goes, it's all those interactions. It's everything is so important. And I think that kids that get to work with somebody like you who knows that, who lived it, it's just such a tremendous benefit to them. Not just to be able to know how to fake it, in a visit, but to live it and to sort of be that kind of person. And so we've probably benefited from that more than we can say. But yeah, it's obviously a tough thing. It is the lifeblood of what we do. It's the lifeblood of our programs, and you try to minimize mistakes. And I sort of liken it to the NFL. When we have 7 spots or 5 spots, whatever we get in a year, it's like those are our draft picks, right? And if we do well with those draft picks, we're going to look good. If we don't, we're not going to look good. And so that's sort of the crux of the job.
Yeah. I mean, the reality, you nailed it perfectly. But I always say to people, because everyone has this concept, camps are money grabs. It's, this guy, I've heard the money grab a million times, and I guess, yes, they could be, but while any big camp is never perfect, like a show, like it could be flawed because there's a lot of coaches, a lot of kids. But if that means JP Pyne sees a kid on a field that he's interested in, the camp was worth it. And then you have to go to these individual prospect camps. Absolutely. Not only are you slightly selling the kid on here's what we have to offer, but you're evaluating this kid. You're running the workout way you want it to work out. You're actually getting to know the kid. Hey, is this a kid we want? And then a lot of times you probably have current kids in the team that are at these camps. You're like, hey, is this do we want? Here, I used to have that at Sacred Heart. I'd have players working it not only to take data, et cetera, and help organize things and pick up balls, but at the end of camp, I go, I like these 5 kids. What'd you think of them? Oh, these 3 are good. These 2 guys, they're jerks, man. Like they think they're the best. So, all right, we're not interested in that kid, man. Yeah. So
we started doing it actually a couple of years ago. We instituted it. And we just had one recently, in February. We had an indoor camp, and we instituted a Q&A panel where the coaches walk away, and and like we have 6 guys varying in class, and the parents, they're going in the other room and they're going to hear from us on policy, process protocols with admissions and financial aid. And those guys are going to ask the questions. And
wow.
And we've got
really smart.
We got really good feedback from that.
Yeah, that's great. I would tell when I have kids that are like in the midst of making a decision and they're confused, I say, I'll set you up with a kid in the current team. You got to talk to them if that's going to put you over the edge. But that's really smart, because it's not always perfect, but they should hear the good and the bad so they can make an informed decision. I think you set the trend on that. That's a really smart idea, man. Really, I like that.
You got to make sure that none of the NESCAC guys hear this.
Exactly. We'll edit that part out. But all right, JP, you're the man as always. So fun. I appreciate with the season coming up, you joining me and whatnot. And anytime we interact, I mean, I think maybe if you weren't coaching, there's a decent chance maybe you'd be an actor or stand-up comic, Well, you could be a model too, you know. That's funny, but I appreciate you coming on so much. You're the man, and I hope you have a great year for sure.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I always appreciate it, and this was a lot of fun.
All right, buddy. You got it. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of And That's the Game podcast presented by ProBatter Sports. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with JP Pyne, head baseball coach at Amherst College. I'd like to remind you that this podcast is made possible through the great support of ProBatter Sports, maker of the most advanced pitching machines for baseball, softball, and cricket. Like a pilot training in a flight simulator, hitters can practice like they play, getting the equivalent of live at-bats against a batting practice pitcher who never gets tired and can throw any pitch with pinpoint accuracy. Check out their line of amazingly affordable systems at ProBatter.com and take your game and your swing to the next level. In addition, don't miss the new book, Practice Like You Play, authored by Adam Battersby, the president of ProBatter Sports. I have a chapter in there on the recruiting process that is available today on Amazon.com. Again, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the podcast.
For more information about ProBatter Sports, visit them on the web at ProBatter.com.